Thankfully, the other presenters have made my job a lot easier. They've already talked about a lot of problems in Indian EdTech. I just now have to highlight a solution that has been hiding in plain sight. We'll be talking about free and open source software in education technology, why FOSS in education makes a lot of sense. I'm Ansh. I work as a program manager at FOSS United. We are a non-profit organization that promotes free and open source software in India. I am a computer science engineer by degree. I was a volunteer with FOSS United for over 2 years and now I'm working here full time. So what is FOSS? FOSS stands for free and open source software. There are two core aspects to FOSS, free software and open source. Free software is basically software that respects the user's freedom to run the software, copy, distribute, modify as you like. And open source, as the name suggests, it's software where the source code is open to everyone. Some popular examples of FOSS are the Linux operating system or the Firefox web browser. Of course, India runs on internet. This is a calculation I did last night. More than 87% of India's internet runs on FOSS web servers, primarily Apache, Nginx, and Open Lightspeed. We are the fastest growing developer population. We are set to overtake the United States and become the largest developer population by 2027. All of these fantastic products, companies, and apps you see, they are all entirely built on top of open source. Next. So yeah, what is the current scenario with the Indian EdTech ecosystem, right? COVID-19, the pandemic, of course, brought drastic changes to the education landscape. Overnight, institutions had to switch to digital alternatives, whatever was available as soon as possible, just so they could sustain the students' education. The number of EdTech users went from 45 million to 90 million in just 1 year when the pandemic hit. And this, of course, led to a very wide access gap because this technology was adapted very unevenly across regions, across financial backgrounds. And the education system continues to suffer from very systemic and core challenges across accessibility, affordability, people dropping out of institutions, and outcome-based learning. There is a very small and limited FOSS education ecosystem, but that is also scattered in silos. So there is no meaningful exchange happening, and we are not sharing ideas with each other. We do have the ability to create world-class software, but unfortunately, our citizens are not able to absorb this software. We don't have good infrastructure. Most of us cannot afford expensive hardware and software. Next. So what are the perils of proprietary software in education? Proprietary software is the counterpart of FOSS, basically software where the source code is closed. You cannot see what's happening behind the scenes. The first danger is, of course, high costs. Proprietary software is very expensive. This was a study by IIM Bangalore in 2009, where they said the education sector can save over 8,000 crores if everyone just switches to open source. A lot of institutions pay a huge amount of their budget just to purchase licenses to these proprietary services year on year. Lock-ins, of course, the entire business model of these proprietary apps revolves around keeping you locked into their programs. They want you to be with them as long as possible, which is why they'll make it very difficult for you to switch to different products once you start using their products. Privacy is, of course, a huge issue. These platforms collect huge amounts of user data. They have complete control over it. They're not going to tell you what they'll do with it. And, these platforms have scaled so fast that their security practices are very poor. We have a lot of examples here. The Unacademy data breach that happened in May 2020, it impacted 11 million users. There was a notification by the government of India which said we should avoid using Zoom, which is of course so popular because it was using facial recognition without informing the users. This is a very old speech by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was the former president of India. He said the most unfortunate thing is that India still seems to believe in proprietary solutions. A very small change in these proprietary solutions will have huge impacts on the lives of people. So open source software needs to be built in India. Open source software will have to come and stay in a big way for the benefit of our billion people. So what does FOSS stand for? Of course, it stands for free and open source software, but from a philosophical point of view, as I said, it is built on the principles of freedom, of collaboration and community engagement. Very similar to education, it also values ethics over profit. FOSS is not driven by commercial goals or profit, just like how education should not be. FOSS projects are by definition accessible to everyone regardless of your financial or geographic background. So then why does FOSS make sense in education? The very similar thing about FOSS and academia is that we both have very idealistic goals. Long-lasting outcomes in both of these domains can only be achieved by working together and in the open. My college used to keep telling us, that you should publish your articles, you should go talk at conferences. Basically, you should work in the open, and that is exactly what FOSS is. In fact, we can argue that FOSS is an implementation of the publications of academia. It's very common that some academician proposes an algorithm and then a techie gets to work on these algorithms and he creates a product out of these, a first product out of these algorithms. It fosters education not just for people who are contributing to these products, but also for people who just merely consume it. It also helps students solve and learn real world problems. It gives you access to a lot of soft skills because you get to talk to people from all over the world, and this is not something you can do at a regular college project. A good example is Wikipedia, which allows all of us to collaborate and edit information publicly. Similarly, I believe students should be able to collaborate while learning. Now, this will create mistakes, but our goal is not that outcomes should be correct always. Outcomes can be wrong, but they should be debuggable. They should be fixable in the sense, and hence free and open. And of course, FOSS is a tangible solution to all the problems with proprietary technology we've talked about: cost, privacy. A huge part of this is policy implications. Government policy needs to be there for us to adopt FOSS. The government of India released a policy in 2015 stating that FOSS should be preferred over proprietary solutions. But there are major gaps in the implementation. Except for maybe Kerala, we have not seen any large-scale implementation of free and open source software. Studies have found out that FOSS can be made mandatory for schools. There is no subject which cannot be taught 100% using free and open source software. There is absolutely no reason for any academic institution to use proprietary software. So one very popular case study I'd like to tell about before I end, the IT at School project by the Kerala government, which is now popularly called the Kerala model. It is the single largest deployment of FOSS in the world in education. In 2001, the Kerala government switched all its computers in government schools to FOSS, and they did it using their own resources. They did not get money from elsewhere. They spent their own resources to switch all these systems. They created their own Linux distribution. They added their own packages for geometry or chemistry and all these subjects. Next slide. There was an agency which was responsible for installing these computers and maintaining it, but with time we found out that the schools and teachers became proficient at maintaining their own hardware. They didn't need to rely on an external agency or a third-party vendor. When the warranty period was over, they set up hardware clinics for people to fix each other's issues. They developed skill development programs for teachers to be able to learn these basic skills, which led to further upskilling. And unlike other states at the time, Kerala teachers got very involved in building the curriculum. They could get way more involved in setting up exam papers, which used to be done by maybe one university or a vendor that created that product for you. And of course, these changes are saving the Kerala government upwards of 300 crores every year. Next slide. So yeah, what is FOSS United doing to strengthen India's FOSS community? These are some of our programs we have. We've had participants from all over the world at our events. We give grants to open source projects. Yes, these are some of our programs, and just skip this in the interest of time. But I would like to mention the FOSS Clubs program. This is our initiative to take FOSS communities to colleges. If you are a student or a teacher listening to this and you want to set up a FOSS community in your college, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to walk you through the process. Yeah. Thank you. My email is there if you'd like to reach out to us. Thank you.